You and Erik had great chemistry on air.
Yeah. Indeed we did. We're actors.
Are you telling me it wasn't that way from the beginning?
No. Well, it was, again, another evolution, a chronology of toxicity, if you will, and, again, lens issues. At the time, it seemed to me like I was working with the biggest egotistical asshole I'd ever met in my life. Swagged in and out of the toilet, swagged on the set, boast about his feathers, his hair, always primping for makeup, always hitting on every girl, taking her to his motorhome and so on. Who is this jackass, right? And then for a long time, for 5 years, I kind of endured that. But I endured it on two levels. I endured it because this series wasn't about you, Larry. So get over it, or make a decision and find a solution and be resilient, but don't wallow in this toxicity. Maybe it's his fault, maybe it's your fault, but don't wallow in it. And so at 5 years, I go to Brazil to do a personal appearance in São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, and I come back. When I'm in São Paulo, 40,000 people meet me at the airport. Literally 40,000. I got to be Elvis for an hour, right? And I couldn't believe it. I'm thinking, my goodness, look. And they had their little Chips uniforms on and all this little kids and stuff. And McCann Erickson, the largest advertising agency, one of them, and this was one of their capitals, had really promoted me coming to do this personal appearance. So I come back, and my agent, and an actor is only as good as his agent, contrary to what people say. You can be a great actor, but if he doesn't have a stable, you're going to be a wannabe. It's a matter of time. And so he says, hey, I just got a call from your friend over at NBC. And what friend's that? And he said, Brandon Tartikoff. I said, oh, yeah. How's he doing? He said, good. He said, he loves your work. Yeah, but they're going to let you go on Chips. I said, what do you mean they're going to let me go? And he said, well, they're caught in a hard spot because, Erik Estrada wrecked his motorcycle and almost died, and you gave him first aid. You remember? Because you were in the Marine Corps, you know how to do all that. So I said, yeah. And he said, you saved his life, basically. And he says you saved his life. I said, yeah. And they took him to the hospital, gave him last rites and everything. They thought he punctured his aorta and ruptured his lungs, broke his sternum, wrecked the motorcycle, hit a truck, and he did what's called a high side, where the motorcycle flips up in the air and hits you, right? And it's treacherous. And so Erik was basically, they said he's not going to live. His lungs are filling up with blood. He's bleeding out and so on. So I went to the hospital with him and so on. Anyway, 5 years later, I come back from Brazil, right, to jump, forward jump. And I'm not in the series anymore. And they said, Erik had you fired. I said, what do you mean? How did he do that? And they said, well, when he wrecked his motorcycle? Yeah, well, he wrecked it the second time. I don't know if it was real or on purpose. But he sued MGM and NBC over that wreck. And he had both of them by the you-know-what, because now either they agreed to what his demands were, or he was going to walk, and they were in the position that they had 5 years, but they needed that sixth year for syndication. In order to have an ROI, return on investment, they needed that 6th year. So Brandon said as much as he hates to do this, he really has no choice. And Larry, Erik wants you out of there, and some other actors also, and you're gone, I'm sorry. So I said, oh, shit. Now this is where the spiral begins, right? So I'm a businessman more than really an actor, I think. And so I said, okay, my Rogers & Cowan was my PR agent. That's a whole nother bunch of crap, right? God, I'm so sick of PR. But anyway, so I called him up and said, hey, and my attorney, Martin Leeds, and we said, hey, we really need to begin the defensive strategy immediately, or an offensive one before NBC or anyone else, Erik Estrada or anyone else, makes a statement about this. Because I look like the loser here. I'm not the loser, I'm the victim, right? But I don't believe in victimhood, so let's find a solution, right? So I hurried up and had this guy, one of their favorite LA Times writers, of course. He comes over and we have lunch at Le Serre in the valley here, with famous French restaurant, one of my famous or favorite places. And you know, I do an interview, and it's a pretty good interview, excuse me for being pompous. And some certain quotes were in there that were perfect, on target, right? And so they published that Larry Wilcox has left Chips, made a decision to leave Chips. So everyone thought I left the show, right? The actor is going to go on and be an actor, right? Lo and behold, did I know what was going to happen, right? But it worked really well. And for a long time, I went on angry at Erik and pissed off, and the hick in me said, I hope I don't meet him, because if I go behind the barn, I'm going to teach him a lesson, right? Not a good path, but anyway, that was the punk in me at that time. And I apologize. So I go 5 years, and I sit down with the producer, Cy Shermack, who says, I said, hey, I wrote these 2 scripts. I produced this television series, the Ray Bradbury Theater, for 5 years all over the world. Obviously, I did the Dorothy Stratton Death of a Playmate. I produced and bought the rights to that. I'm a hustler. You know, when people were asleep at midnight, I'm getting a contract signed by some investigator or whatever. Waco Cole, I heard it and got that before anyone. So I was hustling. So I said, I'm going to do these shows on, you know, how would you like to produce them for me? Because I'm not a line producer, don't want to be. And, you know, I'm a visionary, and I get deals, and I like to make deals and so on. And I said, you know, maybe I don't know, maybe I should hire Erik. I don't know. He said, are you kidding me? I said, what do you mean by that? Why do you say that? I was in that meeting, Larry, when he had you fired. What do you want to hire him for, right? So I said, really? What happened? He told me the whole story I won't bore you with, and it was kind of like troubling, to say the least, right? Abandonment, disloyalty, all the things that I get upset about. And about 5 years went on, and one day my brain clicked on. I said, wow, dude, are you going to wallow in vengeance? Does it make you happy? You want to have a drink tonight over it, and then another drink, and then pissed off and want to get mad at someone? No. So I said, I'm going to love on this guy. I'm going to love on him unconditionally. Don't fake it. Either you do it or you don't. And if you can't cross that line, don't go there, because that's manipulative. So that's what I did. I just became his best friend, said, hey, buddy, how you doing? What can I do to help you? And any stage that he wanted to upstage me, I helped him. He always gets all the girls, no problem. Get with Ponch, you do the photo with Ponch. He'll want to do, I just compromised, submission on every single level. And I got back all the rewards. Now we have a great relationship, and we have lots of fun. I realized that my new lens, when I look back, is that he was a New Yorker from Harlem, grew up in a tough, broken family, a victim of that, no trust, no loyalty, you know, all the things that screw up personalities. And why are you taking it personal? He was fighting for his life to be the star of the series, and in a way, you were in his way. He didn't need any parasitic drag. He needed to move forward. So I actually enjoy, now I watch him as a spectator. And, yeah, you know, like all of us, I see good and bad in Erik Estrada, but a lot of entertainment. He's an entertainment that loves to be an entertainer. So be it. God bless him.